Hey, and welcome to the Neurodivergent Musician Podcast. I'm your host, John Hart, and I fucked that up already. Okay, say that again. Hey, and welcome to the Neurodivergent Musician Podcast. I'm your host, John Hart, and today I'll be joined by my first special guest, Mr. Andy Booth, where he'll be talking about working musician struggles. I'll let him introduce himself in a sec, but each episode is broken up into a traffic-like format where we'll share insights in the red section, improvised babble in the amber, and recommendations you might find handy in the green. Andy, how you doing?
I'm good, thanks, John. Nice to see you. It's been a little while.
It has, mate. I think the last time was down in the island, wasn't it? When was that? A few years ago?
I'm guessing probably Rhythm Tree, 2019.
Was it Rhythm Tree? We also did the workshop and strings. Mate, I don't know. The last few years.
I think it was probably 2019, wasn't it? I think it was pre-COVID, which, as we've all realised, is quite a few years ago now, and time has flown by.
How's things been for you since things have all opened up and you've it's gone back into normality, or is there kind of like a hangover from
it's
COVID?
I think the whole music industry has changed the way it works. This whole kind of concept of remote working across the board in whatever area of the industry you work. I think there has been some sort of impact, and I think that ability to communicate with people like we're doing right now online has definitely carried on. And I think people have kind of some people have adapted to it and thought, actually, it's a lot more productive when you can do stuff without having to involve the travel and the cost of travel. You can actually get a lot more stuff done. So I think that's certainly an element that's continued, and I think it just makes you a little bit more productive, doesn't it? Like when you can do this, just jump on a call. Otherwise, we'd be going to meet somewhere and it would take a long time to sort and all the rest of that.
And I think you get the best out of people when I find when, we're in our own studios, we're in our own homes, I've got slippers on or whatever it is, we've got a cup of tea, and we're not having to worry about the stress of, like you said, traveling and all that sort of stuff. We do that for touring, but let alone trying to do interviews and stuff. But I mean, it's been massive in all areas, whether it's instrumental lessons, session stuff, workshops, whatever it is.
Yeah.
I think that was probably the biggest shift. So yeah, man. So I don't know. I mean, I know a lot about you already, but if you could tell us background, who are you?
Sure. So I grew up on the Isle of Wight as a musician, primarily a drummer. I kind of got myself in as many projects as I could when I was sort of 14, 15, 16, varying from, the kind of pop rock bands to the orchestral stuff, Isle of Wight concert band. I tried to get myself in pretty much as many things as I possibly could. I remember there was a Saturday Music Centre at a place called Medina, held at Medina Theatre. And I kind of spent my youth, I say, just playing music, really. That was one of my real kind of passions. And I ended up studying at Platform One, which is where I do, most of my work now. And that was a kind of a game changer for me, because when I was 16, I didn't really know what I wanted to do apart from playing music. And I actually didn't know like Platform One existed at the time. And it was because a band I was in called the Nautical Theme, we actually won the White Noise competition. And that led to us having a bit of an involvement with Platform One. And they were like, oh, why don't you come and study with us and study music? And I was like, oh, right, I didn't know that was actually a thing. So I ended up kind of studying music post 16, doing a BTEC. And I then went off to Bath Spa University to do commercial music, to do a degree in commercial music, which again was great. Amazing place, amazing city, really creative. Yeah, a lot of kind of inspirational things. Got into songwriting.
Was it
again? Met a load of new music.
Was it? Do
you know what? It's definitely got a scene. I mean, it's got a couple of. I mean, there's a really kind of iconic venue there called Moles Club, which is a kind of a basement. It's a very small basement venue, but it's kind of on the as you say, the toilet tour. It's on the circuit, sort of your 150 cap. But everyone sort of, everyone goes there. Everyone's always performing there on the way up, if you like. But there's loads of, I say loads of like boutique bars and, you know, places that you can just, if you're in if you're solo or duo, there's loads of stuff loads of places to play. But you're also very close to like Bristol and, you know, hour and a half, 2 hours from London on the train.
Yeah, I think, and also, I mean, I know growing up on the island, and I resonate exactly with Platform, but the competition on the Isle of Wight for trying to get gigs and things as well. Whereas if you go to Bath, you could go and drive half an hour to an hour either side.
Yeah, absolutely.
More work or whatever it is you want to do. But I know, but I haven't performed in Bath, but it's just that culture. You go to their historical element, and it's a beautiful place. What, were you there for 3 years?
I was there. Yeah, it was kind of one of those sort of, again, growing up on the island and going to a city, but it kind of shared a lot of similarities because there was a lot of like greenery and a lot of, sort of, I mean, Bath Spa was set in this huge estate. So you were pretty much in the middle of like fields. So there was definitely that kind of resemblance of growing up on the island. But at the same time, you're with different people. You have got you can access, say, the bigger cities.
The city life.
City life, but keeping it cool. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. It was a great place to study. And again, I got myself in a lot of projects there. Did a lot of studio work and say performing. And it was while I was there, I actually got an email from a manager. It was from the head of, I think it was from the head of music at Bath Spa, Joe Bennett, who actually now is a musicologist at Berkeley in Boston.
Okay.
He actually sent me an email saying, "Oh, there's a band in London looking for a drummer," which of course, I'm sure there was loads of bands looking for a drummer or looking for musicians. It just happened to come through to us, and it was kind of asking for people to go and audition. Essentially, I was the only one from the uni that said, "I'm going to go. I'm going to go and do this." It was pop music. It was 3 other guys. It was very pop at the time, very sort of Busted McFly sort of vibes. But I was definitely, by no means was I the best drummer, at the uni. And I was with a friend of mine, Tom, and I was sort of saying, "Man, why are you not going for this? It's a great opportunity." And he was just like, "Oh, I think it's not for me." And I was at that point, I was thinking like, anything that came up, I'd go for it to get some experience.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think we all knew that in the long run you're going to have to at some point delve into that and take a risk. And I'd never been to London on my own at that time. I mean, I was 18, and so I basically got the train down to London, learned a few tracks. I went to this audition at Shepherd's Bush Studios, which is a really popular rehearsal space and studios in London. And I went and just literally played 2 tunes, met the guys, met the manager, and then went back to Bath. A few months passed, got another call, said, "Oh, the guys really liked your audition. Do you want to come back and basically hang out?" So they basically invited a few people back to London to just have a coffee, to chat, get to know you. So I did that again, went to London. A couple months later, then went back again, waited another month, then got another call saying, "Do you want to come and have a proper rehearsal with the guys?" I was like, yeah, okay, sweet. And then I went back to Bush Studios and had a rehearsal with the guys and ran a few tunes. And literally just, after the rehearsal, we were sort of packing up, and the guys like offered me the position and said, "Look, we'd love you to be our drummer." They had record labels interested. They already had a manager, and it was a really great project to be in. And that was really the start of my involvement with the industry. So the band signed to Epic, which were Sony at the time. And we had a great few years. We kind of managed to get top 40 with our single Made Up Stories. We did a lot of touring. We did four UK sellout tours in the end. This is probably a whole nother story. Obviously, a lot of stuff happened in there. Got dropped in the end. Started our own record label,
right?
Which actually we did loads better on our own label than we did with the major label.
What, in regards to momentum and sort of
in terms of I think anyone that gets the opportunity to be on a major record label, you first and foremost, it's really exciting because that's what especially when we were younger, it was like the thing. It was like when indie artists were kind of bottom of the pile, and you're like, you've got to be a major, got to be a major artist to get any success. We obviously we loved the opportunity we got, and they invested a lot of money in us and got us to a point where we were able to almost sustain ourselves without them. Then they obviously invested in us and gave us the platform. And we actually got dropped because our second single didn't make the top 40. It made for number 41. And we actually got dropped because of that. And it was one of those things, we didn't get any radio play on the second single. And actually we got to 41 without radio. So we were like, this is amazing. But again, from a major record label point of view, they want you as high up the charts as possible. So we parted ways on good terms, to be fair. We did. They gave us our album, which doesn't usually happen. So they gave us our album back. We retained the rights for that. And we went and started our own label. So we became directors of a record company called Rubik's Records. We went on to release the album under. And again, we kind of did a number of tours after that. Our final tour being the end of 2009. So a long time ago now, finished at Shepherd's Bush Empire, which was nice because that was kind of where it all started for me, especially.
Yeah.
Started auditioning in Shepherd's Bush and then ended there at the venue. We didn't know that was going to be our last show, but it was one of those things that we kind of
did you all know?
Discussed. Yeah, kind of a few of us in the band knew. I think we were kind of split in that, a couple of us were kind of like, I think we've come as far as we can go, because the next stage after that, you're talking like arenas, and we were miles away from that, And so it was kind of like, do we continue this and then end up going back down the pecking order in terms of like venues and, So we kind of made a bit of a decision to think, this is a good time to call it, which again, it's, it was an amazing experience. I then actually went back to Sony after we'd finished with the band and did some kind of junior A&R stuff, which was interesting seeing the other side. But it was, I think that kind of being in a band for a few years solidly and then needing something to find something else,
expanding,
was a challenge. So I ended up actually coming back to the island and getting a job at Platform One, which is obviously again where I started, where you also went, and kind of ended up being a lecturer there in kind of music industry.
How long was that after the span?
So that was probably about a year. Yeah, about a year, I'd say. It was probably the following September, because the tour was October, so I think it was probably the following September. Which was not, I did a couple of random things in between as well as like doing some stuff at Sony. I also then went back to my old high school, Sandown. I actually ended up playing drums for the production. They were doing, I think it was was it Beatles? I think it was a Beatles production. And I ended up playing drums. And it was purely because that's almost what I started doing. And the person who was, the lady who was running the drama department was still there. She was like, "Oh, would you, come and do a bit of kind of like musical direction and stuff?" And then ended up just playing, and that was really good fun. And actually, I remember Dave from Platform One came to one of the shows, and it was after that we started sort of kind of having a discussion. He's like, "What are your plans next year?" And I said, "Oh, actually, I don't really know, if I'm honest. I got offered a higher position at Sony, but again, at the time, I was only 22." And I'd had all that mad experience by the age of 22, 23. And I kind of, I didn't think I was ready to go into the other side, if you know what I mean, of the record label. So Dave offered me a position here at Platform One. I was like, okay, this sounds great. So I kind of started off by doing a few sessions there and getting involved with like rehearsals and people's bands and just depping on stuff. And fast forward 10 years. 10 years. I'm still there, and I'm in a music industry liaison role now. So I kind of help set up guests and events and partnerships and things like that, which is really exciting because it's again something that we've always missed on the island is that core connection to the music industry.
But you've also had the roots of, like you said, I remember every time I talk about it, I'm like, I'm nowhere. Where I am now is a result of Platform One. And to go back to the roots all the time, I'm always going back. I'm like, look, I've learnt this new thing, Dave. Look, this is coming back here. And I think probably having, that opportunity with Sony might have been awesome. But I just think actually there's probably an authentic,
Absolutely.
natural
Yeah.
white process you've gone through where you're like, actually, I've gone back to my roots, and now you're pulling all of your experience and learning and everything and adapted this role over time.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Kind of, just feels holistic and authentic.
For sure. I think one of the things is, obviously this has been a great kind of role for me, and I love being on the island. So I live here. I've got wife and 2 kids, and I love where we live, but I always have to keep busy. So I kind of got involved in Rhythm Tree Festival back in 2014, originally just doing some stage management, and it kind of evolved over the years to kind of booking local acts for the stages, and now is kind of booking the main acts, which is really exciting. So kind of Rhythm Tree is a big part of what I do for much of the year, namely evenings. It has to be said, I fill my evenings doing that kind of stuff.
I can imagine, man.
Yeah. But again, yeah, exactly. But again, and there's also the playing. I've always been. I've been in loads of different projects since that band, Go Audio finished in the late noughties, but both original and covers function stuff, which again I love. It's good to keep playing. I have to say it's really kind of rewarding, especially when you're playing. I play in a band with a couple of other great musicians, Claydon and Craig Egerton-Reid, who very well.
Yep.
And a guy called Chris Barker, and they're all top musicians, and it's always like really exciting to play with those guys. Even say just doing function gigs, we have a great time. It's great to just play other people's some great songs, and actually it's kind of that adrenaline that you get from playing live music.
Yeah,
is great. Whether you're playing in front of 30 people or 200, it's it's a bit of a buzz.
And you're an active musician as well. I think there's a side of the teaching, and there's all that other side, but actually you're like what I started off on. It's like when I'm doing guitar teacher or whatever, I'm doing session stuff and things as well. When they know that I'm an active musician as well, that's the kind of experience I bring into all those areas, rather than
Definitely
open up the book and let's go through what the procedures and stuff. They want to see for those students or for other people. But you're right, the adrenaline rush of any type of gig, whether it's a wedding all the way up to doing solo shows and band shows and things. I think the greatest thing is if you're surrounded by those type of musicians as well. That I love going out for gigs when it's especially other mates and things, and it's a night out as well.
Yeah, exactly.
We're parents and things as well. We don't get a lot of nights out anymore. So actually, I think it's going out with your mates and having a great night, and it ticks all the boxes.
Yeah, exactly. And the other lads love it because I drive. So I drive in the van and take everyone, so they can have a nice chilled evening. Yeah, exactly.
A few drinks at the end of the night.
I'll be the responsible one.
I used to have to be the responsible in the band. I used to drive the drummer, and I was like, oh my goodness me. I've switched roles. Somehow I'm the lead man, which should be like, I should be pissed. But
you do, yeah, exactly.
I've had to end up driving around the drummer and stuff as well. So, but now I've obviously got myself, so I have to.
There you go.
I have to be the responsible on whatever happens and stuff
all the time. Exactly.
Cool. So let's take a quick break there, and then. What we'll do, we'll go into the amber section and then go into some improvised babble. We'll just speak about, I suppose, the struggles of working musician.
Yeah.
And cool.
Yeah.
See you in a bit.
Wicked, mate.
So welcome back. We're now into the amber section. So we're going to go into some improvised stories and thoughts. So Andy, struggles as a working musician. So I imagine you've probably got many, many stories. We kind of went into it a little bit in the insights, but I don't know if you got
I mean, I guess the kind of the pressures of being a musician that is expected to perform at a certain level is always a demanding. It's a demanding situation because that, let's say you're in so if we're in a band playing gigs, people who come and bought a ticket for your show, they obviously expect that show to be of quality. You know, if you're paying for something, you obviously want something in return. And I think the more that you start to do that, the more that you start to, you know, again, perform and get that experience and build up that reputation as being a solid band live, or, you know, good musicians, then all of a sudden comes the expectation. And it's kind of like one of the small slip ups. If you ever make a slip up live, you know, and I'm sure which we've all done, it'll play in your mind for a long time. It might not be that it's kind of picked up by the audience, but I think the kind of pressures that we put on ourselves as musicians to perform to the level that we know we can is really difficult.
Do you feel like we've almost been grown up with, especially as musicians, and I don't know, music education, there is a perfectionist thing, and it's almost like invisible pressure that we put on ourselves all the time. It's just like, there's got to be perfection, and then it bleeds into every single side of our lives. And I think as musicians, we want to hone our craft all the time, but then it bleeds into those areas where I know if I make a mistake live, for the next 24 hours it will haunt me.
Definitely.
And people are like, no, we didn't hear it, or it didn't. It's like, no, it's that kind of. I don't know. I don't know if that's perfection, or if it's that kind of self-criticism.
It's an obsession, isn't it?
It's obsession, and I think because we've got to that stage now where we don't have those instrumental tutors anymore, sort of telling us about our playing. We've got this internal system now that it's like our internal tutor. So I don't know. I don't know. It's probably a little bit of that. I don't think that ever goes away. As much as people can say, you know, it's not going to happen, don't worry about it, and things as well.
And it's kind of like recording. You know, if you do a recording or something, and you know, later on you kind of realise and you think, oh, I could have played that better, or I made this little mistake, and people are like, no, I can't hear it. It's like, but I can hear it. You know, and it kind of just really gets you. You know what I mean? It grates you. I think that just being a performing musician, especially, and being in a band, it just comes with a lot of other things. You know, I think when I was in early 20s doing what I did and touring, you know, a lot, you know, did a lot of tours, a lot of support tours, as well as headline tours. And it just becomes a very kind of repetitive cycle. It's one of those things you always think, this is always what I've wanted. But a lot of people don't realize how difficult it is to maintain that level of performance when you are, you know, like lack of sleep, you're never sleeping in the same place. You know, every night is completely different. The traveling, you play the same thing every night, you know, which again is fun, and there's no doubt about it. It is one of the best feelings ever. But you've also got, you know, again, it's like the eating thing, you know. I probably put on about 2 stone in the first month or 2 that I was in the band, because you'd just be like riders going for it. You'd have, you know, I mean, we lived in a hotel for like 18 months in Fulham, and there was nowhere to go but the pub in the evening. There was no lounge to chill out in. It was either your room or you go to the pub. And naturally, as early 20s, you go, let's go to the pub. And of course, that then paid a toll when you're playing and you're trying to do a tour where you're just feeling lethargic constantly, and you just think, oh, I'm not going to do this tomorrow night. And then you keep doing it, and there's just a vicious cycle. And that's one of the things that no one points out. I mean, I say no one, it's definitely becoming more apparent now, and there's a lot more people talking about touring and you know, and how difficult it is, and the effects on mental health. And obviously we've got the Isle of Wight band Wet Leg are doing the most outrageous schedule at the moment. I mean, they've been constantly back to back. Not only have they been doing like the award ceremonies, but they've been playing in, you know, Australia, New Zealand, America, and
I imagine
Japan.
They've got all kinds of other interviews and stuff as well.
Yeah.
How do you maintain those levels?
It's very. I mean, I did see that they took some time out. They had to cancel a few shows last year because they said they were just completely worn down from it. you obviously hear people like, like the DJ, like Avicii, who, was just getting back to back touring gigs. They were just taking everything that was on offer. Even if it wasn't the artist that was saying yes, it was everyone else around them, pushing that, this is what you do, this is what you need to do, this is what you've wanted to do forever. And it's a difficult thing to balance. And I think that when you've had that for a good, even if it's just a couple of years, as soon as you don't have that, it's a very big, big drop off. Yeah,
there's a void. I think I mean, again, when you're in your early 20s and stuff as well, you're doing everything and anything just to kind of gain experience and stuff as well. And obviously, we've hit a point now where we're dads, we got our children and stuff as well. And there are some session musicians I know who have gone out touring things as well, and they've got children at home, and they are in this, I don't know, it's just the prison in their head where they love that hour they get on stage, but everything around it, it's just utter chaos, internal chaos, external chaos, where you're just flying around. Like you said, you're not eating properly, you're drinking all the time, you're probably not exercising because you're on cars, you're on planes. And it's kind of it is that lifestyle of it can't last forever. Now there's some musicians, you've got your Tommy Manuels, you've got I mean, even Ed Sheeran he was doing 300 gigs a year, and now he's got he's got a kid and things as well. I can imagine he's like a tug of war all the time, because he can't not do 300 gigs a year, because that was the bar he set. But he's
surrounded by a lot of people as well. When you get to that level, there's a lot of people that are wanting stuff, require stuff, involved in the setup, involved in the travel, and the logistics. There's just so many people. When you get to that level of touring, it's just so intense that it's hard to kind of separate yourself from it until it's completely gone. And they're two extremes, really.
Yeah,
you've got the high adrenaline of playing gigs, and there's no doubt that there's nothing that gets close to playing live music in front of an audience, especially when it's your own music. When you don't have that, there is, as you say, there is a huge void. And I probably struggled for a good few years of not having that, from thinking like, this is my life, this is what I do, to then like, I'm doing something completely different. And now, I'm suddenly at college in front of students, when previously I had no schedule. And I would say no schedule. Obviously, there was a schedule in terms of like playing gigs, but it was very free form. Like when you're obviously, let's say if I'm, working at Platform One, and there's obviously timetabled sessions, so you almost get yourself into a proper routine. When you're doing the band stuff and you're in a band, you've got the daytimes to just do whatever it is that you want. And kind of going from that, where it's so relaxed, and as I said, apart from like the couple of hours in the evening when you play a gig, they're very difficult lifestyle changes. And I think
did you also find that? Did you have a transition of knowing that was your time? If you had a couple of years, you were like, everything I built, like not everything you built, but you had like a couple of years of intense music and touring and kind of and labels and everything as well. And then when it's gone, it's kind of like, is that going to come back again, or is that my time, like crystal ball, where I'm like, that's the milestone of my.
I think I think in a way we were satisfied at the time that we'd had a good run, and all the stuff we'd done was incredible, and we loved it. I think in the lead up to that, to the last tour, we definitely sensed that once this is over, we've got some big decisions to make. Even though the tour, again, seemingly from the outside, it was a big tour. It was like main academies, and Shepherd's Bush Empire, and so it was a big tour. But what people don't recognise, again, from the outside, is the money generated from touring, or from that particular tour. You're probably grossing a couple of 100,000 from that tour, but what you're left with is it will probably get you through a couple of months. once you split it once you deduct all the costs,
Labels,
once you split it amongst the band, the manager, the agent, the promoters, you're kind of like, wow, we did all this for the ability,
almost,
the ability to literally get through a couple months. Then you have to get back out again, and that's where, especially as an independent artist, that's where the real pressures lie. Is that you realize that you do have to be doing things constantly in order to get a turnover, and even though we'd had that kind of major label input before, we all recognize that actually, we're going to have to step it up even more if this is what the only thing we're going to do, if all we're going to do is be a band. So I think it's just trying to look ahead, and I think as a musician you always have to look at what's coming up next and where your next stage is, where the next step is, because if you just sit still, either other people take the opportunities, other people get the chances that you could have should you put yourself in that position.
Obviously that is the music side of things, but looking ahead, moving into building longevity, and I know I know this, and this is why I speak to a lot of musicians. I turned 40 this year, and I remember, I don't know, did you remember Chris from Platform One?
Chris Phillips.
Chris Phillips. Yeah. I mean, I can't remember what year he passed away, but I remember he said during college, he's like, mate, if you don't make it by 25, just go and do another career. Like, oh man, really? And then it hit 25 and it stopped me. I was like, things are not going like the exact direction. And then it hit 30 and then it hit 35. And I was just like, right, okay, it's fine. Yeah. The idea now is just longevity of planting seeds and allowing them to grow organically, naturally. So I think there's almost this feel with a lot of musicians that it has to be instant, it has to be short-term success.
Definitely.
If you're planting seeds now, it has to happen tomorrow. And I think there is something about, say like in the winter period, you can be like, right, I'm going to plant seeds now in regards to ideas, projects, whatever it is, but they're not going to go into fruition until spring or summer. But it's really hard to, for others, especially when you're at that age in your teens and your early 20s, to be able to go, no, I don't want to be waiting another year for this to happen. But that's why things fall off the edge.
For sure.
And I know a lot of, peers and a lot of musicians who have now gone into other careers because
definitely
I don't know what that is, and I don't have any experience of that, but I think I tried that. I tried going into different areas. I tried going to digital marketing and stuff as well. I was like, nope, my head's just not geared for it. I need to stay with myself. So, I mean, I suppose when you came off that and you went into Platform One, were you just kind of going along with the flow, or were you a type of person, because you're an entrepreneurial person as well?
Yeah, I like to think so.
Were you did you naturally have an entrepreneurial?
I guess. I mean, I think one of the things that the band taught me is that, especially when we didn't have the record label, is that, a lot of the stuff we had to do ourselves. So we had to do things like a business plan. We had to do, we had to understand our brand. We had to understand our income, our outgoings. And that, again, was a real eye opener, because unless you are putting yourself in that position and delving straight in, you don't realize the importance of understanding that kind of stuff. I think, a business plan we had to put together to try and attract an investor. Which again, in various forms of business you have to do. And obviously the band at the time was our business. That was what, it concerned. So we had to put together a plan that showed that we were worthy of investment, showed that we had the potential to get, gain some return. And it did work. It did work. We got investment for a short period of time, and it actually allowed us to do one of our tours. But I think that in itself, in terms of, entrepreneurial spirit, is one of those, I suppose we were pushed down that route, if I have to say that, because previously other people were doing it for us, and until you realize that actually this is really important, and this can make a massive difference if we understand ourselves what we are intending to do. And I think, as any kind of musician who's wanting to do it full time has to realize, is that it's not just about the music. There's a hell of a lot of there's a hell of a lot of other stuff that you have to realize. Some of that's down to communication, organization, and I think, I've started more projects than I care to even list, whether that be musical projects, whether that be, I managed a couple of bands about 5-6 years ago, and which went well for a period of time, and then everything else catches up, and you're like, I don't know how I can even manage to do this. I haven't got the time. Funnily enough, I've recently taken on another act, so I'm starting the cycle again. But I feel like I'm a bit more prepared this time round, and it's the expectation of others on you as well. If you're working with other people and you're kind of like putting yourself in that position, they've got to have that confidence in you.
Yeah, I was gonna say also, do you find sort of attributes and people like that they're not just music driven?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah, definitely. I think for anyone, music is where it starts. That's where the passion lies. Core.
Like there is the heart of everything. You can't have a music business without that heart, I suppose.
No.
And you need that. I mean, for songwriting, for whatever creative, for socials, for content, it all has to have a heart and a story and everything as well. And it's almost like sometimes you need two sides of the band. You need the heart, which is the band and the producer and those others who can connect on that music level. You need a headband as well, which is the business side and things as well. And I think it's a lot of musicians are almost like, I don't want to do that. I'll offload it to someone else.
Yeah.
And I have a rule that I like to educate myself a little in every single area, whether it's sales, marketing, finance, and stuff as well, because otherwise it gets really costly if you have some misunderstandings.
Definitely.
And stuff as well.
Definitely.
Obviously that doesn't come overnight, but I know I've met a lot of musicians. It's like the ones I'm teaching at the moment. I've got one going on to ACM and stuff, and I'm like, get your identity, get your business stuff now.
Yeah.
So when you go into there, I remember going to Platform One. I was just like rabbit in the headlights, sort of stuff. But if you go into there prepared, and you've already had written recording, you already got maybe stuff you're building online. Sometimes you'll be further ahead than everyone around you, and you'll get so much out of that experience, and then you can use that as a springboard to go even further.
And I think if you're going down the route of writing, recording, releasing music, you kind of at some point come to the realization that music is essentially a byproduct. It's something that you've created to help grow your own brand. You are the person that is writing that music, so therefore it's you that has to get that that investment, that the skill set, the other things, so the music is almost just like it's a form of marketing, isn't it? It's something that is driving traffic, building the audience, and it's helping people gain that trust. And I guess that's one of the things that people don't ever realize. It's kind of like, okay, great, I put a track out and then you don't do anything else after it. It's kind of like, okay, well, what was the point? It's got to serve, it has to serve a purpose.
It's the front end of your business.
Yeah,
it's the shop window, but a lot of people see it as the end. It's almost like actually a lot of people see social media as the start and end of their business. And actually, you're like, you've got to build all the back end if you want to, like lucrative products and getting on mailing lists and all that sort of stuff. That's the back end stuff.
Yeah,
but they see it's almost like music and social media go together with. I have a rule which is like, you entertain, then you educate, then you execute. It's very business like, but it's three terms where you entertain, especially if you're at a gig and things. If you've got a music business, the goal is to get people to your merch stand, whether it's to buy the products as a shop window, get them onto your list, and then they buy the back end of maybe some massive experiences or courses or whatever you've got on offer. But it is very much like music. And then they see it more as, you can build connections and stuff as well, but you will be able to build bigger connections if they can see you've
Definitely.
got a wealth of a buffet on offer with lots of different stuff.
And that you're genuine. I think, I think authenticity. It's like, and there are a lot of bands like this, by the way. It's like playing a show, as you say, with the merch thing. It's like playing a show and not being bothered to go to your merch stand and speak to the people that have paid to come and see the gig, people that are wanting to buy the merch. It's kind of having that, that understanding that, okay, you're there because you've managed to make a connection with somebody or a group of people that like what you do. They've come out their way to come and watch you. They've come in to then go and potentially buy your record, buy some merch. Having that final piece of the puzzle, which is that face-to-face communication, which, okay, you can't do on a massive scale, but certainly there are a lot of levels where you can do that, and that really does cement the connection. It cements the relationships between you and whoever it is that's, the consumer, I suppose. Again, business terms referring to those that are invested in what it is that you do, and that's something I think every musician now has to realize.
Part of the parcel. It's part of the there's a formula to every show that you play and stuff as well. And if you're missing, like you said, key parts. The last show I did, I stood at the exit. Even something like that, they stood at the exit. Yeah. Some people want to talk, some people don't, but you're shaking everybody's hand. Yeah, it was like 50 people. And I know if it was bigger, but there is that sense of they're going to come back again. They're going to go through this again and
definitely
that is authentic business, I think, side. Because I think also some people see business as just dirty and like, this is disgusting, money and everything as well. Music is art, but you can make business as like music authentic. If it's a handshake, they're going to be with you forever. Every album you bring out, every future thing you bring out, they're going to be there with you. I suppose, there is an invisible struggle with that, obviously. We talk about struggles. I think the struggle is, trying to maintain all of that when you've just come off a stage, you are wiped out, but you've got to go and do all this.
Definitely.
But you only have to do it for a few hours. Do you find when you were doing the touring and the shows and you came off stage and things, were there struggles around that as well?
I think you definitely, as you do it more, I think, let's say out of the 4 headline tours, the first 2 tours, we were really excited to go and do that. I think the bigger the show you play, the more exhausted you are, and the harder it is to kind of go and make that sort of connection. There's definitely regret in my mind that, when you get to a certain level, that you still can't have that connection, if that makes sense. You can do it when you're in a 300-400 venue and you can go and sit at the merch stand for the rest of the night and it's great and people want to chat to you, and it's that adrenaline. It's like, this is exciting, this is a boost, this is great. You go to bed thinking, we pleased a lot of people tonight. When you get to the 1,500, 2,000 mark, it's almost, it's not impossible, but it's very, very challenging to do that because there's a lot more involved. There's a lot more. One, the merch store might be a whole other side of the building, and there's no way of getting there before people leave the building, and you want to get off, and you're dehydrated, and you need to have something to drink, which obviously then turn to alcohol, and then
so hard to
and then you never go.
It's so hard to try and find authenticity in that, because if you've got someone else running the store,
exactly,
the stand, they haven't, obviously it might be connected to the band in some way, shape or form, but to get that,
funny enough, actually, funny enough you say that, we had a mate called Peckers, who he came to all our tours. He went to school with a couple of the guys in the band, and he was our merch guy, but he actually was just as well known as the band.
Oh, really?
So when people came to the show, they actually would go to him for a chat and for a picture as well as, and actually that really worked in our favor, because we sort of had a representative that we featured. I mean, back in the day it was MySpace and Twitter. Facebook, I think, had just kicked off, but it was they were just as part of the band as the band, and that was kind of really nice all round, because we were like, this person's really important to what we do here. That, again, that communication with the fans is really important. If we can't be there, at least we've got somebody that they recognise is part of our team.
And you've got trust in that. Then you've got this, like, okay, actually, we're all right, we're okay. Obviously, you'd like to be there and things, but having that person that you can have faith in for that side of stuff.
Yeah, and they put the work in. It's not just a case of standing at a store. It's a case of every single show, unloading all the merch, setting it all up, doing the counts. Obviously, then there's the show, taking all the orders afterwards, recounting, making sure that the money matches the units that have supposedly been sold, packing it back in the van. So they have a big part to play, and actually they do a hell of a lot more than the band do, and the artist does in the evening. When there's a show, there's no doubt about it.
And so it's just point where you had another team. You had like roadies and things as well by that.
Yeah, point? So we did. Yeah, so we did one tour without techs. We just had a tour manager, and then we had a tour manager, front of house, and a tech. And basically we had two techs, and they kind of split the back line. So we had, like, our tour manager did, the guitar and the vocals, and then the other tech, Fraser, who was a Scottish legend, did the drums and the keys, and the synth stuff. And so they split it. But again, we were always adamant that we didn't want to spend more than we needed to. Those guys were happy to and were very well equipped to do that role. We don't need a tech per instrument. That's just, we don't need it. We didn't have a bass guitar because that was on track. We had synths. We had the keys player often played like bass synth rather than bass guitar. And a lot of the time we just traveled in a splitter van and did like hotels on the motorway, because we were like, it's cheap. We didn't want to do the bus because it was just so expensive, 700-800 quid a day for a bus. When
you said, like, by the end of it, you only end up with, a couple months salary sort of thing.
Yeah. It's mad. I mean, now, when you look at bands that are touring, and the crews they have is everyone has to have a videographer, photographer with them, like, all the time for content.
Of course.
And that's almost like first on the list. It's like, after your band, you've got, right, what do we need? Videographer, yep. Photographer, yep. TM, techs. It's front of house, monitors. It can quickly get out of hand in terms of how many people are on tour, no doubt about it. But again, if you're doing huge gigs, the reason you pay for more people is to ease the pressure on the core team. It's just to got to delegate some of that responsibility. But it's a hard graft when you do it on your own. And there's a lot of bands now. I mean, obviously working in the festival stuff, there's a lot of bands out there that the graft is next level. They drive themselves, they set their own gear up, they sell their own merch. Being in my, mid to late 30s now, I just couldn't imagine the pressure of being in a band now, of going through that.
I set up 3 UK tours myself. We're not talking like massive, but it was like still 10 shows, trying to bring over guitarists over from Canada, visas and stuff. And I did it all myself. So the problem is I drove him. So I drove 1,500 miles in 10 days because I did the gig, and then I had to drive him back to London and then London out. And I broke even on all 3. And it was just like, what am I doing? It's great for the, for the CV and the promo and things as well. But for the mental health, oh my word.
For sure.
And it is one of those where, okay, what is this vehicle for? Where is this going? And that was only 10 dates. So let alone trying to do it all year round. I can just imagine, especially mental health wise, it is just, you're not able to plug in and charge up anytime.
No.
And I mean, do you find this with, obviously not going in details, but now working at Platform One and dealing with students and things as well, has not so much back in my day of Platform One, because I know it's kind of building up and things, but are there now facilities, are there now things that are sort of built into awareness about these things now?
Absolutely. And certainly the sessions that I'm involved in, it's just making everyone aware of the reality of almost what they're signing up for. It's kind of like, if you want to work in the creative industries, one, you've obviously got to work super hard, but also it's that pressure of being, and the difficulty of being able to mentally manage numerous tasks, multitasking all the time, whilst maybe staying on top of, like a part-time job, or say if you've got other responsibilities in life, looking after siblings or walking the dog,
and the volatile nature of it's some of the areas, obviously in music, you can get stability and you can get things, but there is other areas where you're just like, especially gigs, it's just, we all know with COVID, it was just like, wow, actually, we all knew that could happen one day, but it was literally just stop, 2 years, no shows, teaching. We might have done a few odd things and stuff, but it really was a window into, right, my job is not secure, it's not stable whatsoever. And I personally went into, right, now I need to build things that are going to give me stability. I can still do the gigs and stuff, but I don't know, has COVID, in regards to, like, especially with education and Platform One now, brought a new dimension to that side, to the volatile side?
I think obviously those that are studying currently, especially those that that I'm seeing at the end of their degree now, they obviously were in COVID in quite important years of their development. And so I think certainly a lot of people changed the way that they worked. So for example, you've got a lot of people now that don't play an instrument, that write music electronically, or use Logic or Pro Tools, Cubase, whatever's available to them. But currently, you've definitely got a different way of working for a lot of people. And some of them have adapted well to working remotely, working online, working independently. But then, of course, you'll have people that is massively affected. That once you cut off that social element to music, all of a sudden there's nothing left.
You got the extroverts and introverts. I mean, for the introverts, COVID was just amazing. It's not for all, but for a lot of things. And I suppose also it really does throw you into, I need to learn all this now to keep things in house. If, like, you talk about cutting costs, and touring and stuff as well, if you can learn how to video edit, if you can learn how to audio edit and do all the production, if you can learn how to do it all at home, social media content and things as well, it's a long road, but in 10 years time, you'll be well versed. And if you go and hire someone, you'll be hiring someone for their expertise, rather than, can you build me a website? And they go, what do you want? Well, I just want a website. You're going to spend in thousands and thousands, which you need to keep back for your budget. But I can imagine with the extroverted side of it as well, it's, that social element is so vital within being a musician. I mean, I remember doing those jobs with customer service. I had to do them to be able to be the person.
Of course.
I think also when you're talking about getting hired, like, a lot of people forget, it's even with degrees. They do degrees, they're so intelligent, but they lack social skills. So when they go and do those jobs, everyone's looking for an all-rounder. And it's like, when I go to a venue, I'm like, do not piss off the sound guy. I'm like, I'm very much like, be friends with the sound guy, best friends with them, wrap up as quickly as possible. And every single person you meet, you have to make a rapport with them in some shape or form, because you just don't know. It could be, one, you could have a great night, but two, there might be an opportunity. But who knows? But I suppose with those students, the pros and cons of it. But
It's also it's the you know, I mean, I got asked last year. I got asked by a friend who was working on a UK tour, production tour, cathedral. It was of cathedrals, and they sort of said to me, "Oh, can you recommend a graduate to come and be a production assistant? They don't need any prior experience, but it would just be someone who would be willing to work and to learn." Now, and I've told current students this, so this isn't like a, you know, behind closed doors. I've had this conversation with them, and I said, you know, what I did is I went down the list of graduates and looked at those purely on reliability. Never mind, they might be really good at Photoshop. They might be really good at production. They might be really good at, you know, these things. Is this person going to turn up on time? And are they going to be willing to accept the role that they're being, you know, provided with? And again, production assistant was doing a lot of stuff like around the set, doing odd jobs, and ended up doing things like some social media. But I was like struggling because I was like, hang on a minute, you know, you've all got these great skills, and you've come out of this with a lot of great skills, but there's one fundamental thing that actually ties all of this together, which is time management, which is difficult in itself. You know, there's no doubt. You know, I think everyone in some regards, you know, struggles with time management, but it's just that having that, you know, showing up by this time, or maybe a little bit early, which everyone likes, don't they? And just being prepared, you know, being prepared to just see what happens and work and make new contacts and gain some experience. And you can't teach that, really.
Reliability, accountability,
accountability,
flexibility. You know, I mean, all the abilities.
You know, it's the list's endless.
Yeah, it is. You know, and sociability, whatever it is. Like, you need to. It's almost like you could go into any job because you've got those attributes of, you know, those things sort of mentioned, because you can build up your musicianship. Yeah, you can build up all those other skills, but you're right. And I think it can't be forced either, because, you know, people can see double standards. They can see it straight on your face. It's the same with having that persona on stage, and then when you come off stage, you're a completely different person.
Definitely.
I used to be in bands where it was that contrast, but now with my own act, it's just like, no, it's John Hart on stage, it's John Hart off. When I come off the stage, because there might not even be a stage, so I'm on the same level with everybody else.
Yeah, exactly.
So if I'm on the same level with everyone else, I've got to be just me. And that's where a lot of people gravitate. But I think I know people put on masks for when they go on stage, and I know they're hiding certain things. But if they can bridge that gap of authenticity, time management, I think it's like a training. If you have time management, you need to put yourself into a situation or something that is going to build that, or shadow someone, because I don't think you can naturally build that. I think with that, shadowing someone who can really show you the ropes, rather than sort of say it, it's like action. Put yourself into there. I imagine. Did you feel when you went from band into, like you said, into Platform One, your time management?
I've always been pretty particular with time management. You know, I was, and in some ways, that's what got me those opportunities. You know, like taking the opportunity to go for an audition, arriving early all the time. I mean, up until COVID, working at Platform One, I always arrived between half an hour and 45 minutes early, because I'd just get there, have a coffee, get into the zone, and then I'd be ready. Because I could not think of anything worse than arriving there with the prospect of either being late or, you know, getting stuck in traffic, and it delays everything else. Rushing into something, you know, I think I've always wanted to be very prepared for stuff. And I think that's, again, you know, all the session. I mean, I speak to, again, a lot of, you know, session musicians, industry musicians that are doing this full time, and, you know, everyone always says that you've just got to be early. You know, there's not even a sort of an on time. It's, you know, you've got to be early, and that's the end of it. You know, as soon as you're early, people suddenly go, this person's the person for the job, without hearing anyone play. You're like, yeah, that's fine. They'll do a good job. And I think that's what sort of carried over from the band days is, we were up at, like, we often woke the tour manager up. That's how bizarre we were as a band, is that we didn't even, usually it's the tour manager knocking on the door going, come on, we got to go. We were always up, like ready to go. We set alarms, which I think is definitely quite a rare thing to have. So I think I've always had that within me. I think being on time, responsibility.
And you try and channel that into others if you can. I mean,
definitely. Absolutely. I mean, I'm even of that, of that ilk. I mean, especially when I'm doing like festival bookings, and I'll email a band and say, the blah blah, this is it. Can you let me know as soon as possible? I'm almost like wanting people to reply instantly, because that's what I do. I've got this thing, like I'll see an email, I've got to reply, and I'll go straight away. And my wife hates that, because like I'll hear the tone go up, like dun, and I'll be like, oh, see what that is. Oh, but I'm just going to reply.
My wife hates.
She always goes, "You don't need to reply right now." And I go, "Yeah, I do."
I think that's because we know we're in a volatile industry.
Yeah,
if we don't do it, then we're like it's. I'm very time blind, and I know object permanence. So I'm literally like, if I don't do it right now, I'm going to forget my
for sure.
Forget for the next few days. But I do exactly the same thing. It's that kind of bar that you've set yourself, where you're just like, I want to see them as this is my professional side, And you get also that response. Wow, that was a really quick response, and you're just like, it sort of validates that you're there straight away. You're reliable. And I think if a lot of other musicians can get into that mode of, speed replies and sound checks that are super slick and super quick, and
definitely
getting on with the people around them, getting the merch stand set up, shaking hands at the end of it. And this is not including the performance.
It's exactly.
Other stuff around it. But if they can include that in other areas, I know a lot of musicians, that I grew up with, amazing musicians, and they went into teaching, and after 2 weeks they were just like, oh, it's just so boring. And I'm like, mate, sorry, look, this is if we've got a DIY musician's pie chart, this is going to be 40% of your bread and butter. Like, if you don't have it, you're going to be doing your 40 quid a week gigs and stuff, and it's that should be your top up stuff. And then
100%.
and also those 40 quid gigs, and if they see the professional side, they're not going to give you your lucrative stuff, because you're losing so many different areas because you're stressed.
Exactly.
You're stressed out because you're only earning this amount of much because you turn down all those other areas.
Yeah.
I think it's signs like that. It's like, whether you're teaching, whether you're doing session work, whether you're doing production, whether you're doing, performing in functions and stuff as well. Don't turn your nose up at any of it.
No.
It all adds up as a whole percentage. I don't know. There's only a few professions that I know. Like, my wife's a music therapist. She's going through masters and stuff. She works full time. And there's a few, obviously, teachers and things that I know. There's not a lot of other music professions that you can go in that you have one 9 to 5 Monday to Friday job. And most of it then, is added up with 4 or 5 different roles that you've got to be professional, and you've got to be time management, and you've got to do all these other areas.
For sure.
I don't know. Has that, never really sort of weaved in when I was during a platform one, but do you see any of that in students looking forward, or are they very much in the present of their music and trying to get
I'd say the majority are very much in the moment. I think, one of the reasons why I do this, the industry events and the industry chats, is because it's the reality. It's bringing the reality of the industry to them, so that then they click and go, oh, right, okay, so that person got this role where they are now because they took an internship, or that person's got that in that role now because they did some work experience, somewhere else, and they just almost need to hear it. And okay, if I'm talking to them, they might get bored of my voice. Whereas if you bring in someone completely new, all of a sudden you're like, this is a new interesting voice to listen to. Do you know what I mean? So
and also they're relaying the same information.
Yeah, they
of,
always, always.
We're all hit. We all know we've all earned our stripes, and we're all veterans now in the whatever in the music industry. And I think also there's two other sides of it before we go into the recommendations. I think there's mindsets. There's growth mindset and fixed mindset. And the fixed mindset is if you've done something once and it was not, and it failed or it was a mistake, that doesn't mean when you go and do it next time, like we were talking about. I think when you said something earlier when you went to go and do it, then it's management. You said you did a lot of management the first time and you exhausted yourself and you couldn't take on much. But this time round, you're doing it again with that wealth of experience. And then you go, right, I'm going to do the same thing again, but I'm going to tweak it this time to adapt into the way I want to do it. And I think that's a growth mindset. That is a definitely growth mindset of, because if you keep looking behind and going, right, well, teaching didn't work for me. Oh no, well, that didn't work for me. That label didn't work for me. This. There are opportunities at every way. And I think the failures are just as much as important as the successes.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
It's hard. I mean, no doubt about it. I mean, I lost a business and I lost all sorts of stuff as well. And I'm like, they were really hard lessons, but I know now that drop is not as deep as it was. It's now that resilience that you get, and you need a massive amount of resilience in the music industry.
Yeah, you really do,
to make it long term. And my goal is to keep it going in, because a lot of people think 20s, 30s. I want to keep it going 50s, 60s, 70s if I can, but I know I'm not going to hit that level. And I think I've accepted it. I'm like, right, I'm not going to hit that level. I want to do art center circuit. But I think there's a level of being realistic, if you can. Mindset is this is why I started this podcast and things as well, because I've now realized there is 70 to 80% of musicians suffering with mental health. And that is a huge barrier. I think that is stopping a lot of musicians to be able to get their full potential and to be able to get to the next level, because they'll turn down this gig because they've got self-doubt, and then they'll turn down this because they've got, because they don't feel they're worthy. And that's, I'm not painting the brush of everybody, but this is why I've also realized that there are a lot of things that are diagnosed first, but actually there could be neurodivergent, that's indeed going on. I know a lot since COVID and a lot of things that have come out, but mindset is all weaved into that. And I think if you don't have a strong mindset and that support team around you, whether it's your family, friends, or musicians or Platform One, you're already on the back foot. Even if you're creating the best music in the world, to be able to go into a full-time career in music, you need to have that resilient mindset, or to be your authentic self. Because I know a lot of musicians have jumped on trends, or they've gone on the Spotify game, or they've gone.
It's a minefield. It's a minefield now,
and it becomes robotic, I think, for a lot of musicians, because they're copycatting what other people's strategies and stuff as well. And I think in some, it's like influences. I think you have to be influenced at the beginning with some musicians and things, but I think that authenticity in every single area, unfortunately it might be the long game, because to get your authenticity, to find your sound, to find whatever it is, I think it took me to my mid-20s to find my sound, and I went through a long process with it. And I don't know, is that something with
I think I mean, everyone knows that in order to carve a career out of music and the creative side of things, you need to have a bit of an identity, and you need to be able to understand that you need something that people recognize is related to you. So in other words, a sound or a production style or a voice. You can be the best singer in the world, but if you sound the same as any other generic singer, the chances are it's going to be very difficult for you to kind of stand out. And I think that's one of the things that people struggle with the most, is the authenticity and understanding what it is that they do that kind of makes them individual. If you
do you
like,
think it's they focus so much on the how and not the why?
Definitely. Yeah, definitely.
It's like, how do I play my instrument? How do I get more gear? How do I get more production? How do I get money? How do I get this?
Yeah.
Rather than why? Also, why would you want a music career? Like, it's such a, if it's on a CV, if it's, I think that's the important thing as well. If it's on a CV, this is really bloody hard. So, and I think a lot of musicians, if it's almost like, if you do ask them why, they're like, I don't know. I can't answer that. What? Because I want to create music, and it's I think it's almost like those really streamlined, simple questions, which is very complex. But I ask a lot of people when they go and have guitar lessons with me. I'm like, why do you want to learn guitar? And they're like, oh my goodness, you put me on the back foot. I don't want to show you how, because I don't want to go down this route with you if you're going to jump off, or you're not going to prep, or whatever it is. I want to know what is it because you want to learn a song for your dad, or do you want to go and do it because you want to go and play at a school concert? If we've got a goal, a simple, tiny little goal like that, and because of why, we're going places, because you can use it.
And I think that's how a lot of people have to work, you know, having targets, having goals, reaching stuff that is achievable, tangible, but still challenging. You know, because it's just I mean, if you learn an instrument these days and you haven't got a mentor or a guide, it's very difficult to progress, because what you end up doing is you just play the same stuff every time. Like, you get playing drums, you don't have someone there to guide you through certain techniques. You just go and sit at the kit, and you just end up playing the same grooves, or you play the same tracks. It's like guitarists as well. You find that, you know, they'll play the same chord, they'll play the same riff. And actually, they're not really getting anywhere with it. All you're doing is just satisfying your own immediate needs in thinking, this is entertaining. You know, this is what I do. And I think that's what happens a lot now, you know, with musicians, due to the distractions as well. You know, there are a lot more distractions. Social media is obviously a massive distraction.
It wasn't Platform One. I think you're right. Like, it was very minimal. I mean, your MySpace and the amount of time to load up all sorts of stuff, like MSN or whatever. Right, we're going on school, MSN, you know, all sorts of stuff. It was just, you know, it wasn't on a phone. You had to go and access it on your computer. So you had to have that hurdle to go. Oh, actually, I just can't be asked. Whereas now it's so you know, accessible that I don't know. It's amazing. It's an incredible tool, but it can be toxic. It could be toxic at the same time. And
it is
for productivity. I don't know if I would be able to get as good as I am as a keys guitarist if I had my phone back in the day.
No, absolutely not. You know, I mean, we obviously studied around a similar time, and it was definitely more productive, or seemed to be more productive when we were that age, when it was, you know, every single person around us was playing music or in a band or wanted to be in a band, or, you know, and now you can easily, let's say, you could get somebody who's keen to be in a band, or says they're keen to be in a band, and then, you know, decides to just sit there watching YouTube videos or watching stuff on Instagram, and actually isn't in the room, and, you know, all these things that just take you away from the main core of what it is that you've wanted to do. I mean, you know, and again, when you think back to all the great musicians, you know, locally that are around now, a lot of them were from our time, you know, in terms of, you know, they were great then, they're still great now, you know. I mean, like, you got your Jules Nelsons, who is an absolute phenomenal guitar player. And he's still, I remember, you know, 20 years ago thinking, this guy is next level. And even now, if I see him down the road playing in the bar, I'm just like, this guy is next level, you know. And there's just people that just continue to drive, you know.
Well, it's like, well, I mean, we call it, I had another guitarist call it the dark days of practice, when you've got all that invisible stuff that people don't see. It's same as sportsmen. Like, you know, they make it look so easy. It's just because that invisible, you know, and they're playing what they love. It's almost like, if you would compare it to an app or computer game, they are taking those extra bits of scales and stuff as well to unlock next levels. And they're in this real time, you know, computer game, if you want to talk with a musical instrument, rather than this virtual world that it's almost like there's also access to it's saturated, ridiculously saturated with like so many decisions that now, I mean, we had no other choice but to play our instruments and to learn our instruments, which I think that's that boredom, you know, got us to where we were, and we're still doing it today. I do fear for the sort of next generation of, can they have a long music career, or do they accept that, look, this could be short if you don't put in the work early? But I
think one of the things that you know is instilled into the musicians now is, you know, it is that portfolio career concept of, this might be of importance now, but you need to grow all these other areas just to prepare yourself for opportunities to come up. You know, it might be that you know, in an ideal world, you want to be a performer, but actually, you know, within the challenges of being a performer, something else comes up that you grasp and think, actually, this is really great. You know, this is exciting. You know, the amount of people that end up, as you say, like in things like digital marketing, having initially wanted to be an artist or be a performer because they only suddenly found, this is actually really cool. This is really great. I get to contribute to the creative side of things, but I'm not the focus, you know. And that's like songwriters. You know, songwriters love writing music, but they don't want to be the front of that music. They want to be able to provide the songs for other people and let other people carry it. And that's, again, I think that's probably one of the things that I think is starting to become a bit more popular now, is the ghostwriters, you know, the songwriters that love writing but aren't bothered about being an artist. Because again, that used to be the thing, didn't it? It's like, if you write your own music, you perform your own music. That's a given. Whereas now it's there's definitely that pathway, you know, and it's grown massively. Same as production, probably more so post-COVID, because people have thought, I haven't got a band.
And it leads into like
stuff down.
sync licensing and everything as well.
Sync licensing,
it's all part of that sort of same pond now of, you know, everybody's contributing to one particular project, and it can then have multiple strands. And you know, I met a few pupils when I came over last time and stuff, and they're entering into that world, which is great at that age. If you're saying, I want to go into this now, I'm like, wow, if you've got that focus and you've already got that vision, you're going to be massive, like within the next 5-10 years, if you just keep adding 1% every day. That's my rule. I add 1% to whatever it is in all areas of life every day. Because if I say, I add 20%, it's just not going to happen. But no. You know, you send that email, you put up that post on there, you put on something on your website, or whatever stuff. It's all these tiny little Lego bricks that I'm not making massive strides. Massive strides happen every quarter or whatever it is. But that is my sort of musician entrepreneurial mindset now. And I think if there are students who are doing that work, which I wasn't really when we were at Platform One, you know, we were all just like living it for the life of it and stuff. But it's great to hear that there are students that are like that now, and they're teens, because by the time they hit their late 20s and their 30s, hoping they would have built up a body of work in the career or their business, definitely to sort of propel them. And also, you know, touch wood, we don't ever go through a COVID time again, but if we do, it's almost like you've got to prepare yourself for if you have, you know, an illness or there's something that happens, you've got to know that, you know, I've built up something here that can still sustain, and I can get myself over that sort of next thing. So going on to a quick recommendation then, mate. What, I mean, it could be a tip, it could be a trick, piece of software or an app. Is there anything that, I mean, we kind of made a few recommendations as we've been going throughout the podcast, but is there anything that sort of sticks in your mind?
So there's a couple of things that I use an app called Trello. I don't know if you've ever heard of it.
Trello is amazing.
So it's again, time management tool. Even though I feel as though it's not necessarily the doing things on time, it's just the separating of things that I've got to do. And I think where I overlap stuff, so I'll be obviously doing in the daytime, we'll be doing like industry stuff with Platform One and arranging guests and communicating with them and travel, logistics, all that kind of stuff. And then in the evening, when I evolve into like festival stuff or, artist stuff, I just need to be able to visualize what's going on and what I'm currently doing, what I need to do, what I've done. And so I use, so Trello, for those that don't know, you can basically set up a number of different columns, like a to-do thing, an in progress, a completed, and it's just like a drag and drop, and you just, drag windows across. So if you're working on something, you put it in the middle column while you're doing it.
Yeah,
when it's finished, you move it over. You can color code stuff. You can put notes on it.
And you can use multiple devices as well.
Multiple devices,
On your phone, it'll transfer.
Yeah, and it's free. I mean, I've had it for a couple of years, and it's it's just a free app that makes a massive amount of difference because it's easy to forget stuff. It is easy to overlook things, even like sending an invoice. Even if it's like to do with, whether it's for
multiple different departments. I mean,
what
multiple
you were saying things.
You've got multiple departments and you've got multiple hats that you've got to be wearing all the time. Yeah, like to even manage that. And then obviously, when we get home, we've got we've got our father hat, we've got this, so many hats in our lives. But what I like about Trello, I was for another company using Asana, and that was like, wow, that's getting into advanced territory. What I like about Trello is if you're a complete novice, an amateur in any project management, time management sort of software, Trello is just set up in a way where it's just such a clean.
But
it also gives you the opportunity, if you've been using it for so long, to be able to go into the rabbit hole of
definitely
automation or whatever it is, segmenting and all that sort of stuff. But I like that because now I used to use Logic back in the day for audio. I use Reaper now, and the only reason why I use Reaper because it's free is because my producer uses it, and he said, use this, record it, and then you can send me over the project file. And that started off as very much, this is simple, but now I've gone into the rabbit hole. And I think those those kind of platforms and apps and stuff, if you might not use it all the time at first, but if you just got it there, and especially if you're doing a project like an album, you can line up all your tracks, and then you can put them into recording, editing, mixing, mastering.
That's right.
Tweaking it, put dates here, you can connect it with your producer, your rest of your bandmates. And if you turn up that as a bandmate, I mean, people might not like you at first, but they will know that you're the organized one.
That's right.
It's like there's always a leader in the band. And I think that type of app will just gain you your skills as you go. And so Trello,
sure.
Brilliant.
Yeah, Trello's great. The other one I use a lot because I do a lot of the social media stuff for Platform One as well. And again, that's the kind of thing of like, I'm going to prepare all the content at a certain period of the week. Yeah. So let's say on a Monday for an hour, I'm just going to spend that hour sorting the posts, the text for the week.
Yeah.
And then I don't think about it. So I've been using later.com, which is, there's loads of similar sites, social media scheduling. But in terms of taking that pressure away of thinking like, oh, damn, I need to get something to post, or I need to get some content, or, you can just set aside a time to plan the content. You then can post, let it do what it does. Obviously, every now and again you can check and, respond to comments or whatever. But in terms of content, and again, as a musician or an artist, if you're using your social media to market yourself, then it's a great opportunity to schedule photos, schedule video clips, or when a release is coming up for a track, you can do all of your promo and set it up over a few weeks and just drip feed it rather than do it.
To a lot of budding artists or people I've worked with, I'm like, look, you've got to get into the game of batch cooking and scheduling. If you're not into that game, you're literally going to be on the seat of your pants, like just literally every day going, I've got to put this up in here. I used to use Later. I now use, have you heard of Metrical?
Yeah.
So Metrical is on all different platforms. But what I did recently is I did, loads of YouTube videos, official ones that I brought out, 50 of them, but I snipped them up into 30-second portrait videos.
Yeah.
And the great thing about that is you can then just schedule them for the whole year and then move them about or whatever it
exactly.
is. So because now we're in the shorts game, we're obviously in the reels and you know, so I'm not even putting any long form content. And it's just one, I suppose, like you've just said there, I've scheduled now my videos up until June, which is ridiculous, but it took like I just duplicated it. But I'm now having to take, I don't have to put that social media hat on because it's done. And it's the same with, you know, like automation or whatever you can automate in your life or build, I call it evergreen assets. Like if you can build something digitally, like a course, which is a bit bigger, or a resource or a free demo or something like that, that can just keep churning around over and over and over. You're just, I don't know, you're setting yourself up. So you've got more time to focus.
Yeah.
A lot of people complain they don't have a lot of time to spend their music. Or it's just like, well, if you can get into batch cooking and scheduling and automating it, everything, you will be able to get back to it.
Yes,
it's no doubt. But I think, like you said, if you assign your days, it's almost like, right, this is an admin day, this is my creative day. There's other things with calendars and stuff that you can do. But Trello and Later, both brilliant. And it's just trying to make your life easier, isn't it?
It absolutely is trying to make your life easier. Yeah. And you know, at the end of the day, as you say, when you're in the world of you know, music and you're multitasking and you've got, you know, a load of different areas to maintain, you do need to delve into these other like assistants, essentially your digital assistants that can help.
And they're free. Some of them are free. They're free digital assistants like Trello. You're just like, all you have to do is tweak it, give yourself reminders. But also just know it's not necessarily going to work the first week. It's going to take, you have to do it a number of weeks, and you could have to give yourself enough time. So it's like with anything. If you want to start doing exercise, it's not going to happen the first week. That routine, that regularity, you're going to have to do it. I can't remember. There is a stat, but you have to be doing it for weeks and weeks until it's almost like the 8th week. You're like, right, now I'm in a rhythm of it. So,
exactly.
Cool, man. Well, it's been an absolute delight, mate. And
it's been great to talk to you.
There's going to be a lot of packed into here especially when I start editing. But mate. But you know, always when I come down, it's always so good to see you. And
are you coming down a lot?
But I don't come back to the island as much as I should do. And I you know, I try if I can when I pop over and I come up to P1, because I think every musician, especially if you've gone through Platform One, you have to go back to your roots, because it's where it's all started. And if you've got any successes, that I literally bring it back to P1. It's just like, you know, Dave. Nice. So all love for you guys and stuff. So, mate.
Amazing, man.
So much. And,
no worries at all.
And
we'll catch up again soon, I'm sure.
Cool. Guys, thanks so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next episode. Cheers. Take care. Take care, fella.
Nice one, mate.
Bye.
Take it easy.